So people, we need to treat, pun intended, our doctors better.
7 days per week. Yes, at most hospitals, doctors are working 7 days per week.
So when doctors make mistakes and patients die or suffer, it is because the system is understaffed.
Falling asleep trying to take a patient's history because we can't stay awake no matter how we try.
Hello everyone, I am Kemar and welcome back to another episode of The Rotted Show. So it has long been established that our medical system here in Jamaica is substandard. And our medical practitioners, namely our doctors, are overworked, underpaid and severely under-resourced. Now let's touch on these 3 points. Overwork. Some doctors do a 24-hour shift and then have to go do another 8-hour shift the following day with little to no sleep. When that happens, people, doctors are likely to make medical errors. Now, can you imagine in the middle of a surgery, your doctor falling asleep on you, or even one of your loved ones like your mother or your father?
There was at times through exhaustion I fell asleep while operating. I was just retracting because
No, hold on. Stop. You fell asleep while in the middle of an operation?
Yeah, that's happened more than once. And the thing that's not foreign though.
And even worse, these doctors that are sleep deprived will offer you the wrong medication or give you overdose in prescription. Underpaid doctors. Now, if the most revered profession is being a doctor or let's say a lawyer, and you see somebody leave that profession to go do YouTube because it is more lucrative, then the ministry should be worried.
Without doing duty or call, right, there is a fixed base pay, and I will flatly say that the base pay is not livable, okay? The debt that doctors have when we pay $28,000 to go to medical school per year, right, cannot be paid back with the base pay that we have, okay? That's the first thing. Second of all, if we don't do the duty hours, if we don't do duty, then nobody does.
Now, as it stands, the medical system has always been under-resourced. We can look back as far as in 2015, when the then president of the Medical Association, Dr. Alfred Dawes, stated publicly that scandal bags were being used instead of surgical apparatus to do work in the operating theaters.
Solution on the left of the screen is an iodine solution that has an effective kill rate for bacteria. On the right, we're given antibacterial soap that is cut in half to last twice as long. This is about having infrastructure in a hospital where when it rains, you don't have to put a bucket to collect the water. It's about providing us with proper materials. I can tell you that I lost a pair of underpants a couple of weeks ago when I was operating on a trauma victim and blood soaked through the cloth gown, which is of substandard quality. And because I didn't have on a garbage bag, which we were forced to wear at times because there's a lack of aprons, I put myself at risk, not knowing the status of the patient.
Fast forward to 2020, and doctors are still arguing that they have been working in difficult situations with little to no resource, lack of equipment, and lack of medication. But the health minister seemed to be tone deaf.
I refuse to accept that there is a lack of medication.
What?
I refuse to
Minister,
accept
I
that the
will
National
disagree
Health
with
Fund,
you.
hold on, that the National Health Fund, which spends 7-8,
You refuse to accept that there's a lack of medication?
totally refuse to accept.
So I spoke to a medical student who is now a doctor, and I asked him what his experience was like when he was working in the system here in Jamaica.
My capacity in the health system in Jamaica was a med student, and there are a lot of inefficiencies coming from a different country and seeing how the systems are there compared to the systems in Jamaica. There were certain things that I realized that put the patients at risk. So, yes, junior doctors and even residents are overworked and they're not properly compensated. And the biggest issue that I experienced while I was there is that they're not properly supervised, or even the didactics or the teaching is lacking. And it's a lot of trial and error. Particularly when I was there, I was able to do a lot of unsupervised things at KPH. Now, I took that as a learning opportunity for myself because I learned some of these things while I got some training elsewhere. But some of my friends had to learn on patients for the first time. But when it comes to procedures, there needs to be more supervision. And because the system is so stretched and you don't have adequate supervision from senior staff, may it be SHOs, may it be residents, may it be even consultants, you have a lot of junior doctors who are going around doing their jobs diligently, but sadly some just have to wing it. And some of the times you can have some medical errors in the sense of medications that are intended for another patient given to another patient, or the dosage, particularly the dosage, giving a higher dosage, or inadequately or incorrectly administering a medication in the appropriate way it needs to be administered. So I honestly think that the health system is bursting at its seams. It needs help. It needs to be restructured. From what I can see, it needs more staff. But an unpopular opinion is that the romanticized idea of free healthcare should probably be given up, and a better system should be phased in where the government pays for a portion of each patient's treatment, but a patient would have to pay for services like how they pay for some services at the University of West Indies. It still doesn't take away the fact that people do need services, and it doesn't take away from the fact that there are poor people, and those services should address those people, where you can have free services for people who fall under a particular tax bracket or in a particular socioeconomic category. But the idea that we could fund everybody who shows up at a public hospital with free healthcare is a fallacy.
Another junior doctor went on further to say, every testimonial given on all angles is true. Currently, I am on medication for gastric reflux due to stress. Not only do we fight against the lack of proper infrastructure and equipment and medications, despite the disingenuous assertion by the minister, junior staff have to endure verbal and emotional abuse from seniors and given tasks outside of their job description because they are the senior and they said so. I recently had to manually ventilate patients because there wasn't enough ICU or ventilators. One particular time, my co-intern and I had to ventilate a patient throughout the night, meaning from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. This while emergencies still occurring on the ward. Another time, I ventilated a patient from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. only to get a break from another intern to go and get something to eat. I couldn't use my hands properly for a couple of days. Now, on the flip side, I've spoken to other medical experts and they will tell you that the only time these doctors flare up is when their overtime money is being threatened. These doctors, they will argue, abuse the system, and when they come to the public with them crocodile tears, we tend to give them sympathy. The ministry knows it and the public knows it that some of these doctors are abusing the system. Yes, the system is bad, but it's by no means the worst, and of course, it is in need of much needed fixing. But most times, during an 8 to 4 hour shift, you can hardly find a doctor in the hospital to assist ailing patients. So they are not without blame. And of course, that goes for the nurses and the porters also. Now, tubers, let us do the maths. Can you imagine taking your SLB and other loans to pay off your $3.6 million a year for 5 years to graduate to a base pay of $1.7 million a year? When you have JPS, NWC, and all the other bills each month knocking at your door? Now, tubers, I would love to know what your thoughts are on this particular story.